I have this list of 5 structural reforms that if we did, the 21st century is set. I mean, all our problems are self-inflicted. Imagine the politics of getting tax reform, entitlement reform, by which I mean putting Social Security on a sustainable path, putting Medicare and Medicaid on a sustainable path. You know, those are huge lifts. Education reform, that's the global competitiveness for individuals. Regulatory reform. The U.S. in a so-so fashion looks at new regulations and asks, what's the benefits, what's the cost, is it worth it? It never looks at an old one and asks again the question, is this still a good idea? So we have a huge amount of really, regulations that are expensive and have been overcome by events we should get rid of, and immigration reform. The politics of getting even one of those done is so hard that I can't imagine them getting through all of them very quickly. So the economy is muddling along at a growth rate that's 2.5%. The Fed is in a very weird position in that it's gotten itself into this extraordinary monetary policy from which it has to exit. If the exit's perfect, it will do no damage. If it's anything else, it will harm the recovery. The internal recovery mechanisms remain problematic. Consumers are 2/3 of the economy. We're not getting consistent increases in the work week, increases in hourly earnings, the sort of foundations of growth in income. And the biggest problem with this recovery has been no income growth. No one's gotten a raise in 6 years. They're getting very frustrated, but they're not going to spend. Generically, regulation is something we spend tons of time keeping track of. All the sort of talk you've heard about a huge regulatory push by this administration is all true. I mean, these are numbers that are staggeringly high. I was at the White House after 9/11, 2001, and I thought we'd never see a regulatory push bigger than what we did in the interest of national security. This is even bigger. The latest of which is this EPA rule on power plants, and spent a lot of time on issues associated with climate change, fuel switching, what's the nature of our power generation going forward. Let's look at what's going on. First of all, the status quo is unacceptable because we're going to regulate carbon under the Clean Air Act, which is the least efficient, most expensive way you can do it. If you had to pick a way to regulate carbon emissions, the way we're doing it now is going to be the worst. And so if you wanted to do something better, you'd have to pick a strategy. If you do budget work, in the end you end up talking about health policy and health programs. The federal health programs, the Medicares, Medicaids, Affordable Care Acts, are the big spending problem. They are also the programs that require the greatest reforms because Medicare, despite the fact that it alone is responsible for $300 billion in deficits every year. It is by itself 1/3 of these trillion-dollar deficits we've seen the past couple of years. And we get 10,000 new beneficiaries every day, so it is on a completely unsustainable track. We're going to have to reform Medicare. Medicaid's the same thing. We see Medicaid recipients, people who are getting an insurance policy through their state and local government through the Medicaid program, they go to the emergency room for ordinary care at 3 times the rate of insured people. So this isn't an outstanding program. It's going to require some reforms. So health policy, health programs, all of the things that have become so central to the debate over the Affordable Care Act and these federal programs are all things that we spend a lot of time on. And I think it's absolutely imperative that we get immigration reform done in the United States. I've thought that for a long time, and I've thought a lot about how do you get it done. The things we've spent the most time on that I've written on have been on the economics of immigration reform. Why is it that this represents an economic policy opportunity for the United States, and it does. And the blunt fact is that the native-born population in the U.S. has very low fertility. Fertility is so low that we will in fact shrink as a nation in the absence of immigration. So in just mechanical terms, all our future labor population growth, all our labor force growth, the quality of our labor force, its skills are all determined by immigration decisions. And so this is an opportunity to sort of pick an immigration program that's to our advantage. Since 2001 and No Child Left Behind, we have collected the data, and we can now identify the student, the teacher, the principal, the school district, the county, the state of failure. We're never going to emulate the Chinese. I mean, that's a completely different culture. Why do we want to be that? How about Canada? We could pretend to be Canadians, right? You know, slightly different accent, but you can pull it off. If we got to Canadian levels of educational attainment, wages in the United States would be 20% higher. Imagine giving everyone a raise by 1/5. My background has been in academia, it's been in government, It's been in political settings like the McCain campaign. It's been in service settings like the Congressional Budget Office. And as a result, I have built an organization at the American Action Forum which is meant to mirror my interests, which is I'm interested in everything.
It's a human vision, legacy we want to leave behind us.